It is your Thursday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope everybody out there is having a good one as well, and really good show coming up today. Mike Wierzbicki, Gophers Senior Associate Athletic Director, will join me here in just a little bit. Did you know that the Gophers, Minnesota, was one of just two schools to have players drafted in MLB, NHL, NBA, and NFL this season? It is true. Mike Wierzbicki and I will talk about that, as well as what other things the Gophers are up to right now as they gear up for the fall season. The Olympics started. Maybe you didn't notice that. Even haven't had the opening ceremonies yet. Kind of catches people off guard when they see the Olympics on TV when they haven't seen the opening ceremonies yet, but I watched some of France versus USA in men's soccer yesterday. Not great for the Americans. Women's soccer team plays today, so I'll get to that at the end of the show. Some Vikings stuff, as there always is as soon as they start camp. Injury news, not good for the Vikings. And Jordan Addison talked to the media yesterday, so we'll get to that here in a minute. Good win for the Twins, which I'll get to in just a second. First, though, what did I miss? Got to start with Comcast, Twins, Diamond Sports again, because there was a meeting, a hearing with the bankruptcy judge again yesterday. Maybe some good news on the horizon for Comcast subscribers. Sounds like Diamond Sports and Comcast are close to a deal that would put all of the Diamond Sports teams, the Bally Sports channels, back on Comcast. Now, no details in all of this on whether they would go on to a higher pricing tier, which Comcast had been holding out for. My sense is that they would be. My sense is that Comcast wasn't going to do a deal unless they were on this higher priced tier. So if you have Comcast and you've been waiting for the Twins to come back, it's been almost 3 months. It's been since May 1st that the Twins have been off the air. When they do come back and you want to watch the Twins, if indeed they do come back this year, you might have a surcharge on your bill. Now, well, we'll see what the details of that are. More interestingly in all of this, aside from the fact that, hey, this could be good news. If the bad news has been they're not on Comcast anymore, we can allow the good news to be they should be back on Comcast soon, hopefully, maybe within a week or two, albeit perhaps at a higher price. If we can say that's good news, and there's some bad news baked into that if your bill goes up, but at least you would have access to them. So let's take that at face value. But other things emerging from this report were interesting. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune writing about this. Number one, Diamond has asked for another delay in the confirmation of their restructuring plan. We were supposed to have a confirmation hearing early next week where hopefully everything would get sorted out in terms of are they able to proceed and get out of bankruptcy. We've kind of had that date, those dates out there, the end of July, as kind of some final clarity on this. They have asked for another small extension as they work out the deals with Comcast, as they kind of prepare for their finalized plans with the NBA and NHL. Don't love that. We're getting deep into this. We're deep into the summer. NBA and NHL seasons are right around the corner. We want clarity on this. Everybody wants clarity on this. They just keep kicking this can down the road. It was supposed to be mid-June. Then it was late July. Now they want another extension. Delaying. I don't like that piece of it because it just means more time to wonder what the plan is going forward. I'm sure everybody involved wants to know what the plan is, not the least of which is the Twins, because as we've talked about, as was reported again in all of the swirl of what happened yesterday, the Twins are kind of at like the nexus of this big problem, right? Because with Comcast, first of all, Diamond Sports has the TV rights right now, the linear TV rights to 12 teams, the TV rights to 12 teams. But the Comcast teams are kind of bunched into kind of this group of 6. There's, not all of the teams in MLB are heavy Comcast markets that are on Bally Sports North. I thought this was interesting from the ESPN.com piece on this, saying Comcast is most prevalent in the markets where the Braves, Twins, Tigers, Royals, Rays, and Marlins play. However, the Marlins, Rays, Royals, and Tigers, the fans of those teams have access to the Bally Sports streaming app. You can get you can buy $20 a month here. I'm assuming it's about the same in those markets. You can buy the standalone Bally streaming app because they do have the streaming rights to those teams in those markets. There's just a handful of teams that have streaming rights, and the Twins are not one of them. Only of the Comcast teams, of the teams that are most prevalent in the Comcast market and are also Diamond Sports teams, only the Braves and Twins do not have in-market streaming possibilities through Bally. And of course, the MLB streaming app is blacked out in the home market. So the Twins and the Braves have really been hit the hardest in all of this with Comcast because you don't have a viable standalone product, and you are one of those teams that is in a heavy Comcast market. So you can tell why this is impacting the Twins disproportionately from that front. From the other front, they are also getting hit from this because they are one of only 3 teams that has rights expiring with Diamond Sports next year, along with the Guardians and Rangers. So Twins have a lot at stake here in figuring out their TV future. They've got to have next year, as Phil wrote about, you would imagine, and we've talked about this, you would imagine the 2 things they have to have next year are A, streaming rights, whether that's with MLB or through Diamond or some other entity. They've got to have streaming rights in 2025. You've got to be able to have a standalone product where you can get access to the Twins if you are a cord cutter, if you don't want to have cable, satellite, whatever it is. And number 2, you've got to have a resolution to this Comcast mess. And it sounds like that piece of it hopefully will be resolved soon. We'll see what the price point is on that. We'll see when all of this gets finalized. It does feel like they just keep pushing this further and further, trying to run out the clock, trying to squeeze teams, trying to play it all the way around and try to get the most out of everything. But I guess if the headline of this is that games should be back on Comcast soon, you can watch the stretch run of the season, hopefully. That's at least good news. Although reading the Star Tribune comments on Phil Miller's story, a lot of people are like, hey, I'm not paying more, or I already ditched Comcast. Thank you for showing me the light. I've gone with a cheaper product. Too little, too late. I've already forgotten about the Twins. Watching them some other way, listening to them on the radio. My friend Chris Atterbury, listening to him on the radio, things like that. Dan Gladden, all those fine folks who do a great job with the radio broadcast, things like that. So at a certain point, when you've messed with this too long, even if you bring it back, you have hurt your product, you have hurt your visibility. So I'd be curious to see, once the dust settles on all of this, how eager people they've lost for years when these games haven't been on Dish Network, when they haven't been on Hulu, YouTube, people who have joined these other kind of streaming platforms that originally had Bally Sports, or back in the day Fox Sports North. If those people are eager to jump back on board, if they've just kind of determined that the Twins are out of sight, out of mind, and have filled the void in their lives with other things. That will be interesting to see how much they have lost and how much they can get back. If you were one of the chosen ones who are able to watch the Twins still on TV, you saw a great one yesterday, and even luckier if you were in person at a gorgeous day at Target Field. Twins win 5-4 over the Phillies, a really nice comeback win. They were down, I believe, 4-1 before rallying. Max Kepler with the walk-off hit. Kepler ties the franchise record for most walk-off plate appearances with 11. We don't say walk-off hits because sometimes it's a walk, hit by pitch, sacrifice fly, whatever it is. Kepler now with 11 of those, tying Kirby Puckett and Harmon Killebrew. That is great company to keep, and interesting. Kepler, 33rd in franchise history, tied for 33rd with 4,140 career plate appearances, but tied for number 1 in walk-off plate appearances. And of course, Killebrew, number 2 in all-time plate appearances. Puckett, number 6. So, those guys had almost, Killebrew had twice as many plate appearances more than twice as many as Kepler. Killebrew had over 9,000. Puckett had over almost 8,000, so close to twice as many. So don't realize quite how clutch Max Kepler has been over the years in these walk-off situations, often coming up with the game on the line and delivering. He does so again yesterday. It was a broken bat, infield hit up the middle, but putting the bat on the ball, getting the run home, doesn't matter how you get it done, just matters if you get it done, and he got it done. Twins win the series, 2 out of 3 against the Phillies. One of the best, probably record-wise, the best team in the majors right now. Feeling a little bit better about themselves in terms of their competitiveness against the best teams. They were 2-19, including 14 straight losses against the teams that are better than them in the majors right now, coming into the series. But to win 2 out of 3, they're now 4-20. You're not going to take that record very often, but at least on the upswing right now on that side of it, feeling a little bit better about where they are. Got a good performance from David Festa. That was nice to see. They used an opener with Okert going at the beginning. Festa goes over 4 innings, just 1 run allowed, 7 strikeouts. Feel a little bit better about where he is, too. Still probably need a pitcher here. Depending on what the health of Chris Paddock is. Great start from Simeon Woods Richardson the other day that didn't go anywhere in terms of results because they lost. But looking at the trade market, you still think, hey, starting pitcher is something they need. But they got the win yesterday, and Max Kepler walks it off for the 11th time in his franchise history. News was not good for the Vikings as they opened camp on Wednesday. Training camp, Mekhi Blackmon, promising second-year corner, lost for the season with a torn ACL. That is not the news they wanted to receive. Already a position where they, saw that they needed some reinforcements. Of course, this is not first and foremost, but of course, there is an on-field component to the tragic death of Kyrie Jackson, the promising first-year cornerback who was killed earlier this month in a car wreck. They signed Duke Shelley, old friend Duke Shelley, who was good for them 2 years ago, brought him back, signed him on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday lose Mekhi Blackmon, who was probably going to compete for a prominent role in the secondary. So now you're talking about Duke Shelley probably playing some more, getting some more snaps, leaning heavily on a Caleb Evans. What is Andrew Booth Jr., the second-round pick from a couple of years ago? What does he have to show right now? Talking about, of course, guys like Byron Murphy, guys like Shaq Griffin, guys who they are counting on in terms of veterans to play. They've got some top end depth. They should be okay, but like we saw, if the depth will be tested right away. If on the first day of camp you lose a guy to an ACL throughout the season, stuff like that is going to happen as well. So Vikings will need to address that, perhaps even further, or have some good camp surprises show them that, hey, maybe they do have more talent there than it looks like right now. But the Mike Zimmer always wanted more at that position. Maybe they are in the same boat right now because of what has happened already this month. Jordan Addison, by the way, talked to the media for the first time since his arrest in Southern California. He talked about trying to move past it, trying to learn from it, things like that. Here was Jordan Addison talking to reporters on Wednesday at camp.
I know everybody gonna have some questions about what happened a few weeks ago. If I was y'all, I would too. But I was told by my attorney and my agent that I couldn't really answer too many questions on it. But I'm just blessed to be here in front of you guys. This is probably the most peace I felt just being out here with my teammates, and they've been walking with me. They've had their arms around me the whole time, the whole situation. So, really, I'm just blessed to be here right now. Really, I just make sure I'm put it behind me, because at the end of the day, I got a job to do. My job is to come in here and work. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I'm still JA. They know my character, they know my heart. So I just come out here every day and just show them that, I'm moving past it and I'm going to keep learning. Just take it one day at a time. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting one foot in front of the other. And like I said, I'm just going to come out here and score touchdowns for my team and just be a great teammate, be a great son, be a great brother, and just keep learning from my mistakes. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got it all figured out right now, but, I'm just going to keep moving forward.
We'll talk more about that on Friday's podcast, expected to with Ben Gessling. Covers the Vikings for the Star Tribune. He should be my guest on Friday's show, like I said. more on the Vikings, more on the on-field stuff as well. But it feels like Addison took responsibility. I didn't maybe get a full reckoning of this will never happen again. It was more of a we're trying to move past it, trying to learn. I'm not a perfect person yet, incomplete, which is true. I get that. It just strikes me that this is a perilous position now. This is two things. Obviously, you had the speeding incident a year ago, almost exactly a year ago this time, and now the DWI arrest in California. Still waiting for more details on that, and he did not share any details of what happened exactly and where that case is headed, but could be headed for a league suspension. And now that there's two things, you got to be careful, right? Like, you worry about him and making sure that he's learned from it and nothing serious happens again, because both of these things could have ended in much greater tragedy than they did. But two, like from a competitive standpoint, the Vikings are leaning very heavily on their offense, on Jordan Addison, about the future involving him. If something else happens, you got to wonder about that future, right? You got to wonder, can you keep tolerating things like this? Can you keep giving second, third, fourth chances? Those are questions they hope they don't have to answer. They hope that he has learned from this. He hopes he has learned from this. Frankly, we all do. We don't want to see that happen in any way, shape, or form. So that's the big question going forward. I don't think we have the answers yet, but it does put the Vikings in an interesting and perilous position if something else were to happen.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Good to be joined right now by Mike Wierzbicki from Gophers Athletics, Senior Associate Athletic Director for External Affairs. Thanks for joining the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. The impetus for this was something I came across, I think the other day. It was a tweet from College Football Reddit. I don't know if you go on Twitter a lot. I don't know if you're on Reddit a lot. College Football Reddit's pretty good, actually. It's there's some conspiracy theories as all Reddits, but it's pretty good. And so I didn't know this, and pardon me if I should have known this before, but the tweet it was a very simple tweet. Just basically said, only two schools had players drafted in all four of the major men's pro drafts. All of them happened in a fairly rapid sense. You had the football draft in April, but then, basketball, hockey, baseball are all kind of boom, boom, boom right there in, June, July. Only two schools have players, at least one player drafted in all four of those drafts this year. Minnesota's one of them. Boston College, I believe, was the other one.
Correct.
Were you aware of this? Should I have known this before?
Whether you should have known or not, I won't answer that one for you, Mike. But I'll say this: we were tracking on it, and obviously, it's tremendous to see our student athletes, reach those opportunities where they're being talked about on potential draft boards and forecasts from some of those industry professionals, and so. We knew kind of where things are at, and then kind of going into the baseball draft, we're keeping an eye on things closely to see. We felt pretty good that we'd have somebody, but now when they were taken and what round can kind of be a little bit hit or miss given the depth of a baseball draft. So we were tracking on it to see how it played out, and obviously a really cool opportunity that to celebrate Minnesota and see our student athletes, have their name called for each of those four sports organizations was really cool to see, and an awesome testament to what our coaches and student athletes are doing here at the U of M every day.
Obviously, men's hockey is kind of the eliminator for some programs. Not every Power 5 school plays, big time Division I hockey. So you eliminate a good swath of, like, say, the SEC by doing that. But still, you have to have players drafted. Like the Gophers had 3 players drafted, I think, in the NHL draft, I think the 3rd round, 5th, and 7th. So you're kind of assuming you're going to get at least one Gopher drafted in the NHL draft. Probably the trickiest one here is probably men's basketball. Usually you're going to have a baseball player drafted, especially because there's a lot of rounds. I think you've had 5 years in a row now, at least, of one player getting chosen in the NFL draft. And this year, of course, Tyler Nubin, there was a pretty good bet that he was going to get picked. You didn't know if Cam Christie was going to get picked. You thought maybe first round, but probably second round. You didn't know that for sure. But the NBA drafts have the hardest one, only 2 rounds, and it's hard to get drafted and hard to be represented there. But it's just the opportunity. Like, but hockey, hockey is the one where you and Boston College get kind of the upper hand on some of the other schools, right?
Yeah, I think so, right? And you're right, Mike. You look at it, and I think you pointed out to it. As our staff was doing the research, and really credit to our athletic communication staff, and tracking this, and obviously knowing where Boston College sat, and knowing no one else was really in the mix at that point. And when you talk about the NBA, you're right, and I think that was another interesting statistic that our staff pulled. When you looked at the NBA draft, and you talk about the finite number of players selected, I think from our research, there were only 30 or 31 schools who actually had an NBA draft pick in this year's draft. So, right, multiple schools had multiple players, selected. So I think you're right. You look at how challenging it is to get drafted in the NBA really is another differentiator. So there's no doubt about it, right? Hockey certainly has its own opportunity to narrow that pool a little bit, but having an opportunity to be represented in the NBA was a tremendous one for Cam, and how fast he progressed and his career at Minnesota was wonderful to see him achieve that potential. That I think if you talk to Coach Johnson or Cam, or talked about him coming into the U, NBA was certainly on his mind, and he certainly has earned his way there with a tremendous freshman year. So that was awesome to see.
Must be kind of a fun thing to have within the department, right? Because it's obviously good news, and God knows we could use some good news in a lot of respects. And I've probably spent a little too much time sometimes talking about NIL this, or like what's going to happen that, or football program, how many games are they going to win this. So probably nice to be able to trumpet that, but also it probably is something you can put out there to donors necessarily, or just like the general public, like, hey, like whatever your perception of how things went in any of these sports in the last few years, a lot of them have had success, but like whatever your perception of this, whatever negativity might be out there, like, hey, we had guys in every single one of these major drafts get picked this year, and that's that's got to be a positive thing that you guys can throw out there.
It certainly is. And I think when you look at any of our programs and our coaches, our student athletes, and the challenge that Mark Coyle sets and President Cunningham from the top of the university is that we're going to have young men and young women who can compete academically, athletically, and socially, right? And one of those is not a non-negotiable compared to the others. And when you can see them reach their greatest potential athletically, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, everyone's seen the statistics of NCAA athletes, and 99% of them aren't going to go pro in their respective sport, right? They're going to get a great degree and go on to tremendous professional opportunities. But there's no doubt about it that every athlete, whether it's the Olympics or it's competing in professional sports here domestically, reaching that potential, they're motivated by that every single day. So I think there's no question that when we can see these athletes achieve that, have that opportunity to hear their name called and take that next step, there's such a small number of athletes who get that opportunity. And so now it's up to these young men especially to go earn that and make the roster and find their way through a long-term career, which is challenging enough, but they're at that spot that so few people get a chance to hear their name called, take advantage of this opportunity. So you're right, we do celebrate it. We celebrate it from our sports program, we celebrate it from our coaches, and there's no question our alumni rally behind it, seeing their past and looking at Gophers now who followed in their footsteps to kind of take on that next step that they did. So there's no doubt it's a lot of fun. And so from each of our sport programs, we follow along the draft, we create some cool content, we celebrate them with their going to professional teams, and we'd love to see them stay here in Minnesota. Doesn't always happen, but wherever they go, now especially like the NBA, we've got a little Minnesota pipeline out to the West Coast with Amir Coffey out there, and now Cam Christie joining the Clippers. So naturally, we develop some certain preferences for various sports organizations that have former Gophers on the roster.
There you go. Is that a lot of what you do in your role, or for those who don't know exactly what you do, how would you define your role?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Mike. So as you kind of think about our athletic department, my role overseeing a variety of our external functions is really about things that impact our fans, build our brand, whether that is marketing efforts, social media, in-game production, licensing, really anything that we do from the athletic department that touches our fan base is really something that I work on every single day. And obviously, that drives to corporate sponsorships and helping to support ticket sales and generating the revenue that we need to create to support our student athletes on the internal side of the house and make sure they have all the athletic training and strength and conditioning and academic support and nutrition, which there's some hefty expenses there. So really my day-to-day focus is what can we do to elevate our profile, grow our brand, drive that revenue that we need to support our athletic department. And so that we're, content and seeing our student athletes and celebrating their successes and storytelling certainly has a financial component to just keeping Gopher athletics front of mind. And whether that be with alumni or season ticket holders or donors or fans or students, you name it, but also just a way that we can continue to make sure that we're celebrating the successes that we're having.
As you engage with fans, maybe this is slightly off topic from where we started, but as you engage with fans, so much change in the last 2-3 years in college sports. How much are they just like asking you, like, what's going on here? Where is this all gonna? How is this all kind of impact what happens with the program I love? Things like that.
Yeah, there's no question. It's something that we're talking about every single day. And you think about it, 3 years ago, July 1 of 21 was when NIL passed, right? And I think we've seen so much evolution. We never used the word collective before. Well, now we use that word a lot.
Right.
And so it certainly is a conversation. I think, it's a little different that we're dealing with it every single day. Sometimes our fans hear about this or hear about that or don't quite connect all the pieces. But I think there's still a lot of excitement about the future. Now, I think, don't get me wrong, there's a lot that needs to get settled with the House settlement and future opportunities of what this structure of college athletics looks like. But, I think when it gets back to its core of college athletics and pride in the institution and passion for the maroon and gold, that's just as strong as ever with our fan base and our donors and our supporters. And there's no doubt it looks a little different. Probably will look a little different in the future, but I think as we roll around the calendar here to the fall and soccer starts competition, cross country, football, volleyball, you're going to see that same level of passion and support from our fan base like any other year, which is a ton of fun and very exciting.
A lot of people in Minnesota say summer ends, basically state fair time. For you, it seems probably it ends like mid-July, right? Like early July, whenever you start turning the page to football. We got media days this week. For football, they're going to be on the practice field next week, right? I mean, it's coming fast for a lot of these sports. What's kind of on the immediate horizon? What's on your plate right now?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And for the Minnesotans out there, enjoy summer while you can. It kind of ends a little shorter for us as we prepare for the fall seasons, but it's exactly right. We get a little opportunity in mostly May and June that it's not as many events as we deal with in a normal academic year, but it's planning, it's strategies, it's budgets, it's all of the prep work before you actually get to August, where from August really through April and into May, we're really heavy with events and obviously operating 21 programs. You get your fall sports up and running, and the next thing you know, October, November is here, and we call it crossover season as winter sports start. And here comes basketball, and here comes hockey, and here comes wrestling, and so it's really it moves fast. And so really the summer months give us a chance to catch up, exhale a little bit, do all of our strategic planning, really set our priorities and goal setting for the year ahead. And so really that's what these next 4 to 6 weeks are as football and volleyball and soccer start up, is really honing in on all of our different strategies to make sure that we've got everything ready to hit the ground running for the fall seasons.
As you set goals, should there be a goal next year of adding WNBA to that draft list? All 5 of them next year are getting keep adding to that legacy. I mean, but really, like you could come close to this next year. Who's to say this doesn't get repeated next year, right? No
doubt. And I'm not going to put that pressure on Coach White and our women's basketball staff, but you know what? No doubt about it. And I think, we're excited with what they're doing, and even only a year under her belt here at the U and tremendous group of student athletes. So you're not wrong. And I think maybe that speaks back to your question about the evolution of college athletics and where things are going. And I think being in the Big Ten, and you look at the new members joining our conference this year, right? Officially here in August with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. There's no doubt that you've got some tremendous competition, but also I think that just elevates the profile, right? And the visibility and the exposure of what our student athletes are doing. So I think it really is motivating, but also, kind of sets the standard of competing in the Big Ten. You're competing against the best of the best, every single week, which I think then sets us up for a lot more future opportunities as it looks to those professional opportunities our student athletes receive.
It should be an interesting fall, winter, everything like that. A time of change, as we talked about, but sometimes change is good. We'll see where it all shakes out for the Gophers. Mike Wierzbicki from the Gophers Athletic Department, appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll catch up down the road again.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Mike Wierzbicki for joining me on that segment. Just for the sake of naming everybody, sorry if I didn't already, but of course it was Tyler Nubin for the Gophers football team. He was drafted in the second round. So was Cam Christie for the Gophers men's basketball team. Gophers baseball team had 2 players drafted. Connor Whitgriff in the 7th round to the Pirates. And Tucker Novotny went to the Oakland Athletics. So it was the 3rd day of the draft, a little bit further on down the board. He was taken in the 18th round. So 2 Gophers baseball players drafted, and then 3 hockey players drafted, all of them incoming freshmen. You had Brody Ziemer in the 3rd round, John Whipple in the 5th round, and Eric Paulson in the 7th round of the draft. So those are the 7 players drafted spanning those 4 sports. Good for the Gophers. I'll be writing about that a little bit more today. Maybe I can dig into the history of that a little bit more. Let's finish with the cooler quickly. Olympics, they started. Did you notice that? I think I was watching yesterday, and those people are like, wait, the Olympics are on already? Yeah, soccer was on, men's soccer, U.S. losing to France 3-0, not entirely unexpected. And remember, in the Olympics, the men's soccer is the U23 teams, not the full national team. So it's a little bit different than the panic from Copa America, things like that, but not a great result for the men. U.S. women, much bigger expectations. They begin play today, and the men's team should be okay too. They've got a couple winnable games coming up in their group stage after that loss to France. So we'll see where they can go from there. But yeah, Olympics going on already. Lots of Minnesotans, of course. Anthony Edwards, Nafisa Collier, Suni Lee, Cheryl Reeve, a lot of Minnesota connections, the swimmers they have, the divers, everything like that. A lot of Minnesotans to watch in these Olympics. Opening ceremonies very soon. A lot of action next week, so pay attention to that. In case you were just kind of like going along and like, when's the Olympics going to start? They already started. They started yesterday, and here we go from there. That will do it for me today. Like I said, Ben Gessling on tomorrow's show, talking more Vikings. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow.